whipped, broken, and hunted like an animal. Yet he refused to bow. This is the true story of the man whose scars changed the course of history. In 1863, Peter works as a slave on a cotton plantation with his wife Dodian and their children. When he learns he's been sold to a new owner, he spends his last moments with his family, praying together. But soon, white men arrive to take him away. Ignoring the cries of his children, Peter fights back, screaming and struggling with all his strength. But when one of the men points a gun at Dodian, Peter freezes. He gives up and steps into the cart on his own. Still, the men beat him anyway, just to make him suffer. Can you imagine being treated worse than an animal? Peter and several other slaves are locked inside a cage, transported like cattle. Through the iron bars, Peter promises his crying children that one day he'll come back for them. After a long, brutal journey, they arrive at their new destination, a railroad construction site. The conditions here are far worse than any plantation. The heads of slaves who tried to disobey hang at the entrance, a gruesome warning to everyone. They sleep in cages, and even when they obey orders and work hard, the white masters still hit and insult them. To make it worse, they quote the Bible to justify their cruelty. Vicious dogs roam the area, trained to hunt down anyone who tries to escape. If a slave misbehaves, sometimes they're whipped, sometimes shot on the spot, and sometimes branded across the face. The boss, Fassel, keeps two men close to him, Harrington and Knowles, who, shockingly, was once a slave himself. Knowles, once a slave himself, was chosen to become one of the guards because of his sharp hunting skills. Peter tries his best to behave, to stay out of trouble, but even when he helps his friend Gordon after he falls, he gets yelled at, just for doing something other than work. That evening, after all the slaves are locked back inside their cage, they watch in horror as John is thrown in, screaming in pain, his cheek freshly branded with hot iron. A young slave named Thomas trembles in fear, so Peter tries to calm him down. He tells Thomas to remember his loved ones, to see this as just another job, a terrible one, but temporary. He reminds him that God is always watching over them. But John scoffs. "There's no God here," he says bitterly. Peter stays calm and simply promises to pray for him anyway. Next, teaser thought. But what if freedom was suddenly possible? Sometime later, Peter overhears two white guards whispering about shocking news. President Lincoln has freed the slaves. Those who managed to escape are running toward Baton Rouge for safety. Before Peter can process what he's heard, one of the guards notices Thomas made a mistake while serving food. The man decides to punish him, but Peter steps in, explaining that Thomas is just a kid. The guard hits Peter hard, then pulls out his gun, ready to kill him for speaking out. At the last moment, Fassel stops him. He's become strangely interested in Peter, maybe because of his courage, or maybe because he enjoys breaking strong men. Later, when Peter is locked up again, Fassel approaches the cage and says coldly, "I'm your god now. You're my dog." Peter looks him in the eyes and replies, "Then feed me the same meat you give your dogs." Fassel just laughs. But the next day, he chains Peter down, forces him to kneel, and lets his snarling dog bark inches away from his face, making sure the beast never forgets his scent. Over lunch, Peter quietly tells the other slaves about what he heard, Lincoln's order, and the city of Baton Rouge. They could reach it after 5 days of walking through the deadly swamps. Some slaves hesitate. Surviving the swamps means facing snakes, insects, hunger, and no guarantee of life at all. But Peter reminds them that staying here only means dying slower. His words spark courage in a few men. All they need now is the right moment to escape. Next, teaser thought. Sometimes Freedom starts with a single act of defiance. A few days later, one of the slaves collapses and dies during work. The guards order Peter to drag the body to a pit where they throw all the dead together. Some white deserters nearby should have been the ones digging, but they refuse, saying a black man should do it instead. Peter picks up the shovel, pretending to obey. But deep down, he knows this is his moment. When an explosion suddenly goes off in the field, the guards are distracted. Peter moves fast. He swings the shovel hard, killing one guard, then another. He grabs a knife and runs for his life. Seeing this, the other slaves and deserters take their chance too. Chaos erupts. Some hit the guards, and John even manages to steal a gun. The guards raise the alarm. Gunfire echoes through the air. Slaves fall one by one as they flee into the woods. Fassel joins the shooting himself, killing deserters in rage, furious that Peter has escaped. He immediately calls for Harrington, Knowles, and the dogs to hunt him down. But can anyone really outrun the hounds of hell? Peter reunites with 3 of his friends and leads them deep into the forest, listening carefully for any sign of danger. Hours pass as they move through the shadows, their hearts pounding. Finally, they reach the edge of the swamp. It's dark, silent, and deadly. Most of the group wades through the murky water without much trouble, for now. As Peter and his group cross the swamp, Thomas suddenly freezes in horror. His eyes lock on the crocodiles gliding through the water. Before he can move, the dogs catch up, their growls turning into screams as they tear into him. Once the beasts have done enough damage, Fassel calls them off. Standing over the broken boy, he demands to know where the others are heading. Thomas refuses. Fassel smirks. "Tell me where they're going, and I'll let you walk away." Shaking with fear, Thomas gives up the truth. Fassel nods, pretending to keep his promise. Thomas turns to leave, and the next second, a gunshot echoes through the swamp. Fassel laughs as the crocodiles drag the body under. Sometimes, the only way to live is to keep running. Meanwhile, Peter, John, and Gordon finally make it across the swamp safely. Peter suggests they take the deeper swamps to stay hidden, but John refuses. He wants the open horse trail, confident he can protect himself with the stolen gun. Gordon looks torn. He wants to follow Peter, but Peter insists they'll have a better chance if they split up. Before parting ways, Peter reminds him, "Follow the sound of Lincoln's cannons." But even heroes bleed. As Peter pushes forward alone, he notices blood trickling down his leg. A bullet must have grazed him earlier. He knows if he doesn't stop the bleeding soon, the dogs will smell it and find him. But first, he keeps running, trying to put as much distance as possible between himself and Fassel. Moments later, Peter stumbles upon a house owned by a white family, one that keeps slaves too. Quickly, he grabs a vine from a nearby tree and ties it tightly around his leg as a tourniquet to slow the bleeding. Peter sneaks quietly around the house, hiding behind a pile of logs. From there, he reaches the water pump for a quick drink, his first in hours. Then, he spots clothes hanging on a rope nearby. Taking a huge risk, Peter crosses the garden, grabs a shirt, and sprints back into the forest. But before he disappears, one of the family's children sees him and rings the bell, shouting for help. The noise carries through the woods. Fassel hears it and rides straight to the house, where the family points him toward the direction Peter ran. Sometimes, survival means thinking faster than the people hunting you. Peter keeps running, stopping only long enough to wrap his wound using the stolen shirt. Then, he takes it off, blood and all, and hides it in a trunk, a perfect trick to throw off the dogs. He slips into the swamp water, hiding just beneath the surface. Moments later, Fassel and his men arrive with the hounds. The dogs sniff the shirt, bark wildly, and lead them down the wrong path. Once they're gone, Peter rises from the water, gasping for air. But he's not safe yet. A crocodile suddenly lunges toward him. Peter reacts instantly, jamming a thick branch into its mouth, then killing it with his knife. And somewhere far away, someone feels his pain. That same moment, Dodian wakes up from a nightmare. She saw her husband in danger. Their children wake too, crying out for their father. Dodian comforts them, whispering that Peter is still alive, because he's survived things no other man ever could. The night may hide him, but it also bleeds him dry. When night falls, Peter climbs high into a tree to rest. Using his knife, he scrapes off the leeches stuck to his body, blood dripping down onto the leaves below. Meanwhile, Fassel and his men find the dead crocodile. They cut it open, but it's empty. Peter's gone. They decide to camp for the night, roasting the crocodile over a fire. Harrington can't help but admire Peter's skill, saying, "That man knows how to survive." Fassel immediately snaps at him. He doesn't want to hear any praise for the man who made him look like a fool. As the men sit by the fire, Fassel tells Harrington about a lesson his father once taught him. If you give black people even a little, they'll take more. They'll take your jobs, your land, everything. Harrington listens silently, while Fassel's words drip with poison. But while hatred talks, freedom keeps moving. At sunrise, Peter continues to run, coating his skin with mud and animal waste. The smell is unbearable, and flies buzz around him constantly, but it hides his scent from the dogs. As he wades through yet another swamp, he whispers a prayer to God, asking for courage, not fear. When the clouds part and the sun breaks through, Peter takes it as a sign from above. Meanwhile, Fassel splits his men into groups to cover more ground. Even in hell, a survivor finds hope. Peter stumbles upon an abandoned treehouse. Inside, he finds clean water, scraps of food, and still hot coals from an old fire. He heats up his knife, pressing it against his wounded leg to cauterize it. The pain almost makes him pass out, but it saves his life. Then he places the coals in a bucket, climbs up a tree, and uses the smoke to drive away bees from a hive. He collects the honey, his first sweet taste of hope in days. But his small victory doesn't last long. Fassel sees the smoke in the distance and begins to ride toward it. Peter, however, is already gone. He finds a small boat tied beneath the treehouse, though a snake has claimed it as its home. Carefully, he pushes it away with a branch, then jumps in and starts to paddle. The boat drifts quietly as Peter eats the honey, finally feeling a brief moment of peace. But peace never lasts for those still enslaved. Back at the plantation, Dodian faces her own nightmare. Her master tells her she's been sold. She'll be gone in 2 days. Her children aren't allowed to go. Her new owner will give her a new husband. Heartbroken, Dodian refuses to accept it. She still believes Peter is alive and will come back for her. Desperate to avoid being sold, she makes a painful choice. She walks to one of the cotton machines and forces her hand inside, pretending it was an accident. And while she bleeds for hope, her husband fights to stay alive. Following his dog's nose, Fassel reaches the old treehouse. He finds the ashes, the tracks, and knows exactly which direction Peter has taken next. As Peter crosses the river, he hurries into the woods, only to bump into John again. But instead of relief, John is furious. He blames Peter, saying the white men will now hunt him too. Peter swears he isn't being followed and even teaches John how to cover his scent. But John refuses to listen. Moments later, the sound of barking dogs cuts through the silence. The 2 men panic. Peter hides inside an old wooden trunk while John climbs a tall tree, but the dogs find John's trail anyway. Fassel and his men arrive moments later. John refuses to come down, so Fassel shoots at him, knocking him from the branches. How much pain can a man endure before he breaks? Fassel demands to know where Peter went, beating John mercilessly for answers. But John never talks. Fassel, furious, cuts off John's head and orders Harrington and Knowles to take it back to camp as a warning. Inside the trunk, Peter squeezes his eyes shut, whispering a prayer for his friend's soul as he listens to the horror outside. Hours later, when the rain begins to fall, Peter finally climbs out. He walks through the mud and finds what's left of John. The sight crushes him, but he forces himself to keep moving, grief now burning inside him like fire. But sometimes, fire means freedom. As Peter pushes forward, he suddenly spots a group of horses running wild, one of them completely on fire. He follows their trail and soon finds where they came from, a burning plantation. The air is thick with smoke. White bodies lie scattered on the ground. The slaves here must have heard about Lincoln's order and decided to take justice into their own hands. Inside, Peter finds a large dining table full of food and wine. He's starving and exhausted, so he throws all caution aside and devours everything he can. But suddenly, he hears a strange sound coming from upstairs. Curious and alert, he follows the noise until he finds a young girl trapped under a fallen harp. She's weak and dying, still pressing the strings as a desperate call for help. Peter quickly rescues her and carries her outside, laying her on a table. When he goes to fetch water, she stops him and shakily gives him her cross pendant. Peter understands. She wants a prayer. He holds her hand and prays beside her, comforting her as best as he can. But while he's distracted, Harrington suddenly appears behind him, gun in hand. Peter freezes, dropping his knife and stepping away from the girl to avoid getting shot. Sadly, the girl dies moments later. Consumed by rage, Peter turns around and uses the very cross she gave him to stab and kill Harrington. Just then, Knowles arrives, but Peter quickly grabs Harrington's weapon and shoots him. Before dying, Knowles says that someone strong enough to kill a crocodile could have joined Fassel's ranks. But Peter looks at him coldly and replies that he's the worst kind of man before walking away. Hearing Fassel's dogs barking nearby, Peter hides in the cotton fields. When one of the dogs gets too close, he shoots it. Later, Fassel finds the dead dog and swears he'll catch Peter no matter what. By morning, Peter reaches a beach covered with the bodies of white soldiers who died fighting Lincoln's army. There's nothing he can take from them, but in the distance, he sees ships and hears cannon fire. Lincoln's men are near. His heart races with hope, and he starts running toward the sound of freedom. But suddenly, a horse charges beside him and slams him to the ground. It's Fassel. He beats Peter brutally, then offers him a piece of meat with a cruel smirk, saying, "Eat. You'll need strength to keep running." Fassel corners Peter, forcing him to kneel like he once did in the cage. With a cruel smile, Fassel orders him to beg for his life. But Peter refuses, standing tall even with blood and dirt covering his body. Fassel, enraged by Peter's defiance, pulls out his gun and snarls, "I am your God." Just as he's about to pull the trigger, a gunshot rings out, but it's not from him. The bullet hits Fassel instead. He drops to the ground, lifeless. Peter looks down at his fallen captor and says coldly, "You're no God." When he turns around, he sees his rescuers, Lincoln's native guard, led by Lieutenant Keogh. Relief washes over him, but his body finally gives in to exhaustion, hunger, and pain. The soldiers rush to carry him to their camp's infirmary in Baton Rouge. There, a nun nurse treats his infected leg wound and forces him to rest. For several days, Peter drifts in and out of sleep, haunted by dreams of his wife and children, their faces giving him strength to survive. When he's well enough to walk again, Peter is handed new identification papers, proof that he's now a free man. Since he doesn't know his exact age, he's told to invent some details, but his freedom isn't complete yet. The white soldiers explain that the freed slaves considered stolen contraband only have two options: work on the federal farms or join the Union Army. Peter refuses to live under anyone's orders again until one soldier points out that by joining the army, he might finally rescue his family and win real freedom for good. Peter agrees. Soon after, he learns that Gordon, another escaped slave, has also been found alive, though badly injured. The two friends reunite, and Peter painfully tells him about John's death. Later, as Peter prepares to receive his uniform, an officer named Q asks if he'd help their cause by posing for a photograph. Peter hesitates, suspicious of the white photographers, but Q assures him they're there to show the truth, to let the world see the horrors of slavery. Peter silently agrees. He removes his shirt and turns his back to the camera, revealing the deep, brutal scars from hundreds of lashings, a living testament to everything he endured in his fight for freedom. The next day, Peter is summoned to meet the general, who questions him about everything he knows regarding the railroad the enemy is building. Peter shares every bit of information he's gathered, but the general's eyes fall on Peter's back, the deep scars in the famous photograph. These scars, the general says, they mean disobedience, not exactly what we want in a soldier. But Peter stands tall and replies firmly, "No, sir. These scars mean I've been beaten and broken many times. Yet I never stopped fighting." His words silence the room. The general looks at him again, this time not as a slave, but as a man ready to fight for something greater. At dawn, Q leads Peter and the native guard soldiers into the trenches. His voice rings out above the chaos as he reminds them, "You're not just fighting a war, you're fighting for your freedom." The soldiers march forward. Bullets cut through the air, men fall one after another, but none of them stop. Soon, fire and smoke surround the battlefield. Peter is thrown into a puddle by an explosion, but when he opens his eyes again, he refuses to stay down. He drags his aching body through the mud, firing back whenever he can, whispering prayers over the dying men he passes. Then he spots Gordon, badly wounded and terrified. Seeing his friend's suffering reignites something inside him. Peter bursts from cover, running straight toward enemy lines. His goal: to stop the cannons. His courage inspires others to rise and follow, and together, the native guard overruns their enemies, winning the battle through sheer determination. When the war finally ends, Union soldiers visit plantations across the South, freeing every slave they find. When they reach the plantation where Peter once worked, the people can hardly believe what they're hearing. Freedom is real. Peter searches desperately for his family, almost collapsing in grief when he can't find them. But as he kneels to pray, something inside him stirs. He turns his head, and there they are. His wife and children run into his arms, their tears of joy mixing with his. After everything he's endured, Peter is finally home, free at last. The photograph of the real Peter, showing the scars on his back, traveled the world, a symbol of courage and hope. By 1863, after Lincoln's proclamation, over 400,000 enslaved people escaped to freedom, and by 1865, nearly 4 million were officially recognized as free. And that's how one man's suffering became the proof of a nation's rebirth, a reminder that even in the darkest places, freedom always finds a way.